And okay, and the meeting is being recorded. Okay, so Natasha, I'll give it to you because I know you guys have probably had a couple of conversations together. And Andy, welcome, welcome to the group. Welcome to the meeting.
Yes, welcome. Thank you, Andy, for joining us. I mean, yeah, we had one, I believe we had one conversation. I'm not sure if it was with you or Randy, I'll be honest with you.
I think it's probably with me, or
Yeah.
maybe what it doesn't
So
matter.
I know that we were a little bit skeptical as to like how to have the conversation, and how to make it worthwhile for the few agents that have joined us today. And we did discuss maybe just giving an overview of what Dream Insurance has going on right now, what you guys are offering, and maybe if possible, like how agents could, discuss, have this conversation with their clients around insurance, the importance of it, just anything you feel would be important for a real estate agent to know to share with their clients.
It's awful difficult to say based on the fact that you can't really discuss insurance unless you're licensed to discuss insurance. So obviously the best thing to do, or the best way to protect yourself, is just to refer yourself off to a licensed insurance person, or a Dream Insurance would be myself. And so as the principal broker at Dream Insurance, what I would do is I would turn it over to Sam in our Mississauga office. He would handle that. I guess what I did is I just ran a Dream policy off, no one in particular, but I just wanted to kind of briefly go through the coverage in case you come across a situation. And the perfect situation certainly is in Toronto, where it's like, actually no, not so much in Toronto. Toronto would kind of make sense, but I'm going to go say St. Thomas, Ontario, and I'm sitting there looking at a house $750,000 to rebuild, but it only cost me $150,000 to buy it, right? So there's that replacement cost. So some stuff like that. So I'm just going to go down through the coverages that are involved in a homeowner's policy. I'd be happy to sit in on more of these things if there's more questions. I mean, I'm a 30-year insurance veteran, former insurance company vice president, and so on and so forth. So coverage A is the dwelling. So the dwelling base, it's painfully obvious that it's just what the house is without any stuff in it. And generally speaking, what insurance companies are going to want, they're going to want to insure that to 100% of replacement cost. So in Toronto, it's not uncommon for a house to go for $1.25, $1.5 million that really it only cost me $500,000 to insure, right? So it's really not about the market value. It simply is, how much is it going to cost me, the insurer, to put this person back immediately where it was before the fire happened, tornado hit, whatever happened. So that number is really has not as much to do with the market value as you would think. Ultimately, we need to replace the building. That's what the important part. So, and when it comes to that, the best possible coverage is going to be comprehensive or all risks. All risks is anything that happens unless they exclude it. One of the exclusions, for example, would be nuclear, but there's an insurance program in place for that, the federal insurance program for that. So just all risks. There's also coverage for additional buildings. So I have a attached garage as part of the house. I have a garage in the back. I have a shack in the back. I have a pool shed in the back. That would be covered into that. And generally speaking, that number is about 10% of the dwelling. So if I have a $500,000 house, I have $50,000 automatically included in most policies for those buildings. Personal property, again, best advised to have it all risks are on that comprehensive, and generally speaking, that's about 70 to 75% of the dwelling cost. So if my building is worth $500,000, apparently I can put $350,000 worth of stuff in it. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. It's always good to advise your customers, regardless of just to kind of keep an inventory of some sort. And now it's just a matter of taking the phone and walking around the house, and that's the couch that I bought, and that's the pool table that I bought, and that's what this is, and so on and so forth. So always your best interest to have that. Another important coverage is on a homeowner's policy is loss of use. And it's as simple as this. I got to live somewhere when my house catches fire, or the tornado hits it. And more often than not, that number is in and around the area of 10% of the dwelling. So if I have $500,000 worth, up to 20%, 500,000, so then I've got $10,000 to go find myself a place to live, just until the house is taken care of. That's very important. And and I don't know if you guys are in the rental business at all. If
Yes.
you're doing some rentals,
Yep.
so the best advice that you give the person, I mean, at the end of the day, if something, I think minimum is maybe $15,000 or $20,000, but if that's something like that happens, then it's you could probably replace stuff like that. But in the event of one of your buildings has a problem and this guy has tenant insurance and he has what they call additional living expenses, that he can go and live someplace else until it's repaired or until he finds another place. So I mean, that's just sound advice as a business professional, let alone an insurance professional. Personal liability, which is kind of important as well. If anything, any actions brought against any of your tenants or any homeowners that's not related to auto, more often than not, it comes against your personal liability. And for whatever reason, maybe it's because we're so close to the U.S., it just seems that we've become a very litigious society, and the opportunity to sue somebody for something is there. So, and again, liability limits, if anybody asks you about liability limits, the answer is, what can you afford? So the higher, the better. Personally, I carry $1 million on my auto, $1 million on my home, but I also carry what I call a $5 million umbrella. And the $5 million umbrella is that when I run out of limits because I rear-ended a third party, and there are 4 people in the car, all claiming that they have injuries and they take action against me. So as soon as I get through the first $1 million, my umbrella kicks in, and I'm 5 million, I hope, will be enough, but that's the way I manage the higher limits. Voluntary medical payments. You have somebody over for dinner and he has one or 2 or 12 too many glasses of wine and he trips over and breaks his ankle, and so there's a part of the liability policy that's called voluntary medical payments. So what that does is just simply says, you know what, let's get you to let's get an ambulance to get you there. So the voluntary medical payments, stuff like that, you're just a nice enough person. It was your fault, but I'll take care of you, and we'll send it that way. And the same would apply for voluntary compensation for property damage. And the best example I could use of that is when the 3 or the 4-year-old rides the bike into the neighbor's car. Does he put it through his insurance, or do I say, listen, I've got this thing on my home insurance policy called voluntary compensation for property damage. Why don't we just put it through there? Those limits vary. They could be anywhere from $500 to $1,000, which is not really big. Some things that you could be aware of, certainly in this day and age, is guaranteed replacement cost on the building. And no, never does it more apply than it does right now. When it used to cost $2 for a 2x4, now it's $8 for 2x4. So when you end up the guaranteed replacement cost, the fact that the construction materials are up by 30%, I guess this was a pretty fair number. You guys would know better than I would, but that guaranteed replacement cost is there. So if you're ever in a discussion with somebody who's buying a home or a property off, you say, just make sure you've got guaranteed replacement costs. They'll take care of any mystery. Nothing worse than having $1 million house to find out it's $1.3 million to insure it, and you got to go into your pocket for $300,000 to get your house back. There's lots of fluff that comes with it. I guess at one time I would have called it fluff, but like identity coverage, identity theft, a lot of that would be covered by your homeowner's insurance policy. Probably more important now than it's ever before. People out hacking just for fun. There's a lot of different waters that I like. So I live in London, and I live about, I'm going to say 500 yards from the Thames River. So my water coverage, and I just, because of I guess by postal code says that I'm at risk of having flood because I'm 500 yards from the Thames River, which would make perfect sense if I wasn't 100 feet above the Thames River. So it's going to have, if the water rises, so where I'm going to get water in my basement because of the Thames, somebody better build an ark. That's my thought. So, but there's overland water, there's sewer backup. There's, one thing, you need to, if water's coming in through a foundation, more often than not, it's covered. It's not covered because it's more a maintenance issue than anything else. I would think, it's the most boring thing we could talk about is the standard mortgage clause, but at the end of the day, you're going to know that if my house in Greenhedge Lane in London, Ontario is owned by myself and owned by the Scotiabank, at least for a little while longer anyways. So, and generally speaking, that they're going to want to have documents to prove that, which is just a lost payee or lien holder, what have you. As far as what's going on at Dream right now, Dream Insurance, it's emerged with a company called AI, and AI stands for Affinity Insurance Organization, and basically putting the staff in place where we can provide service, we can provide quotes. We have a massive commercial department, which you guys do a lot of developing. We have Nathan, which if you wanted to have Nathan in one time, he could tell you about what he's doing from a commercial standpoint or how he can help you with builders risks, commercial insurance, bonding. It is a full line commercial insurance brokerage for the most part, and there really isn't much that they don't do. So my position at Dream is I am the I'm the principal broker. I'm the responsible broker with Rebo and trust accounts and so on and so forth. So that's really kind of what I do there. And anybody who calls me, for the most part, it just gets moved on to whatever the appropriate department is at one of probably 10 different people at AI that are helping support the Dream efforts in the insurance space. And that's it in a nutshell. For the most part, I'm Andy. Been in the insurance business since the first fire, and here to help. Here to answer as many questions as I can. I think Natasha's got my cell phone number. If you guys need to, if you have an insurance question, or you need some direction on which person you need to talk to within the combined AI Dream organization, and by all means, give me a call. I'm happy to help out. If you guys got any insurance questions, fire away. It's not the most fun thing I've ever. I will tell you that in elementary school, I can't remember one single person that says, you know what, I don't want to be a fireman anymore. I want to be an insurance agent.
Well, thanks, Andy. Really appreciate you taking the time and sharing with us. I think somebody did post a question in the comments, which I'll get to in a second. In terms of the products that you guys offer, are they mainly commercial at the moment? And you guys are looking to build? It's all lines. Okay.
We are all lines. We have three or four companies that are strictly personal lines. Yeah. And then many that are commercial.
Okay. And in terms of realty, I mean, most of our business is residential, of course. I'll say, there's quite a bit of leases that do happen within Dream, because there's a lot of people that invest. We have a lot of investors that end up renting out their, those units to tenants. So there's insurance, obviously, that the investors need to have, and insurance that the tenants also need to carry as well. So in a scenario like that, where would we find you to be able to maybe provide quotes? I know, it's not the most lucrative part of the insurance world, but is it worth your while? Or is there someone that maybe you can point us to that we can reach out to when we do have, these spaces? And they range. I mean, condos before, when I started buying condos, were $199,000. Today, condos start at, especially in Toronto, $650,000. So quite a jump. So, liability insurance has become even more important because of how expensive these little, boxes are today in the sky. So who would be, I guess, the best person to reach out to for those questions?
Best person to reach out to would be Sam, and he's Sam at dreamins.ca.
Okay, Sam at dreamins.ca. Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Good guy, knows his stuff.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Well, thank you for taking the time. We just wanted to get you here to do an introduction. Isaac had mentioned that, some changes and evolution were happening with Dream Insurance, and it would be great to connect. And obviously, if we can keep the lines of business in-house, and I know we have some discussions that we will need to put together 40 agents, maybe a spiff or incentive program, 40 agents to keep their clients, residential needs, commercial needs, and insurance needs, property management needs, all in-house. So I know we're still in the early stages, but really appreciate you coming here and just saying hello to the group. And we know where to find you as well if we have questions related to the London market, because you probably are probably be a little bit more versed than some of the members of our team as well. So
I grew up in Sault Ste. Marie, but for some strange reason, I think I've been in London for almost 3.5 decades.
okay,
My
how
wife,
long, how
we
long
went
have
to
you
high
been
school together, both there. So
there? Okay.
yeah, for sure. I can find my way around town without using my GPS.
Okay.
Yeah. So there was the question that came in the chat was about the deposit rocket. I will. I'll send you the email to the guy who I think it's Naresh at Deposit Rocket, but I'll get an email and send it off to you.
Okay.
Email deposit.
So sorry, Naresh will give us more information on this program.
Yeah. Well, I'll turn it over to Naresh and have him reach out to you guys with regard to the Deposit Rocket. He's the nicest guy ever. You might even want to have him and come in. I don't think he's as funny as I am, but he'll come in and talk to you guys as well.
Okay. And do you know anything? So Polu is asking if you use the voluntary insurance part of your insurance, does it increase your premium? Do you know anything about that?
That's a great question. I'd like to say no, but I've been in the insurance business too long to realize that you never give an insurance company a reason to raise your premium, because more often than not they do. I honestly can't give you an answer to that. I would think the best person to do is just ask your insurer and say, if I was to put a voluntary property damage claim in, is my insurance going to go up? Because ultimately, on this particular policy that I have here, the voluntary property damage, and there's no deductible for it, is voluntary property damage is up to $1,000. Ironically, it's the same amount as your deductible is for more often than not. So if your insurance, you have to weigh it. Yeah, you really have to weigh it. I mean, I've been down the discussion a million times with regard to, I rear-ended a third party, but it was barely a scratch. Well, if you put it through insurance, then you're looking at your insurance going up. It might be cheaper if you just fix the scratch. So I think when it comes to a claim situation, everything is, talk to your professional advisor before you do anything.
Right. And do you guys offer life insurance benefits, accident, sickness, all of that?
I believe so. I'll have to get you a contact for that as well.
Okay. So then I'll communicate with you through email just to get all these pieces out to our brokerage.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Andy, thank you very much for taking the time. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. You guys have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks.
It's almost the weekend. It's Friday, Junior.
I'm leaving from here. I haven't seen my mother in Sault Ste. Marie since COVID started. So I'm leaving Mississauga, because London all the way around the lake is a long drive somewhere. I can't cut through the States. So
it's a long drive.
Well, my son's going to play in a golf tournament, so he'll have fun.
Nice. All right. Okay, Andy. Cheers.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, guys. Thank you. So, what time is it? Almost 11:30. Okay, so we're doing very good for time. So what I'm going to do now in this segment of it, and I'm glad this was recorded, so that way I don't get questions about this later on, because I'm just going to have you refer to the recording. And I think part of what we've seen in this market, and I remember about 4 years ago in 2017, when the markets were kind of similar to this in terms of how crazy and wild it was. And I found it very, very challenging representing buyers to be able to win deals in this market. And what it allowed me to do was refocus where I was putting clients. So, pre-construction, typically, as we all know, takes 4 to 5 years to build. Buyers that want to buy now typically have a need to want to move in within 3 months, 6 months, max 1 year. So pre-construction as a solution for buyers, in a market like this that's super competitive, whether they need to relocate for work, their families are growing, or they're just looking for more space in a market like this that is super competitive, where there's no conditions, everything is over asking, and there's risk and exposure to your clients. What I found to be very effective was two things. One, looking at assignment sales, and two, looking at builder inventory sales. Now, the main reason for that is it allowed the buyers to get into the market, but with the same benefits as pre-construction, which is brand new, customization, warranties, um, and the ability to and the ability to capture something without competing with hundreds or even thousands of individuals. And I've put clients in, even at the moment, my strategy still is, looking at assignment sales for buyers, looking at builder inventory for buyers, or looking at terminated listings or expired listings, to be able to get buyers the products that they need without having them to compete, in a market that's very, very frantic, as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about assignment sales, what assignment sales are, how to leverage assignment sales, how to structure assignment sales. And, I believe that this piece of the market which is super niche, could be extremely beneficial to you guys and your clients. Obviously, if you are looking to get into an assignment sales, have a discussion with myself, and we'll teach you how to structure it. And I have other, and I believe I should have some templates of assignments that maybe I'll have Natasha upload on the Google Drive, and we'll just black out the names, and that way you guys can see formats, clauses, that you should have, in your deals as you're structuring them. So I am going to share my screen. Natasha, can you, or can I do it on my end?
You've got capability.
I've got capability. Okay, boom! Here I see it. Can everybody see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to take the next little half hour, talk about assignment sales, and how to, what they mean, how to structure them, and how to really take advantage of them. So I'm not going to go through the beginning of it. Some of these slides you guys have seen. So really, understanding the fundamentals of the market, I think, is still very, very important for everybody. Understanding, the landscape of the GTA of Ontario, understanding housing policies, understanding that we have a shortage of housing. Toronto is pretty much located in an island. We got water in the south, and we have green belt protection to the north, and in between as well. Most of the policies are geared towards intensification, and not really towards sprawling, because as we know, it takes Toronto 10 to 20 years to build infrastructure, whether it be transit, whether it be getting building permits. It's super, super slow. And on top of that, we have a growing population. At for the time being, we know mortgage default is still historically low. So when you're having conversations with clients about, market crashes, the data still does not support it. We still have a less than 0.5% mortgage default rate. And if you look at 2008, 2009, the American housing crisis, mortgage default rates were at 11%. One out of every 10 homes, were essentially struggling to make their mortgage payments, which is simply not the fact here, because our banking systems, our infrastructure are laid out. You can't get a house with 3% down. Whereas in, the US, you can definitely, get into the market with as little as 3% down. Here in Toronto, it starts at 5% up to 35%, depending on your profile. So again, the fundamentals around, our banking infrastructure, our climate with immigration, which hasn't even been turned on yet. We're seeing downtown is starting to rebound. We're starting to see bidding wars on homes for condos, which we didn't see 12 months ago. So, there's a slow, um, revitalization of downtown and condos. We know in September, kids will be going back to school, or at least they're working towards it. Our international students will be back. 1.2 million people will be landed in Canada over the next 3 to 4 years, and these individuals are highly skilled. These individuals, qualified to come here through a point system that is high education, high skill, and personal resources and personal savings. So that's the framework of why we have, the craziness and the wild west that we have it here in Toronto. And then also we can't forget that interest rates historically are at the lowest that they've ever been. And they'll probably stay low up until next year, end of next year. But I mean, who really knows? Bank of Canada seems to change their tone every quarter. So understanding that climate is very, very important. Obviously, we're still building, and we still have the most active cranes in North America than any other place, any other major metropolitan city. And again, these cranes are operating because we have serious demand happening and very, very limited supply. And part of it is, it just takes Canada so long. So some of these cranes, who knows, they've been operational for maybe 5 to 10 years, because it just takes forever to just get stuff up in Canada. For those of you guys that have bought pre-construction, I know I have pre-construction purchases from 2017 that probably will not get built till 2023. Unfortunately, that's just the framework of what that's just a framework of what this environment is. A lot of these things I've already spoke about, so I'm not going to dwell on it. Everybody's favorite radio station, WIIFM. What does that mean? What's in it for me? So for those of you guys that are here today, you're probably listening to this, and the conversation that you need to convey to your clients always when you're having these conversations about fundamentals, about the climate, about interest rates, you have to always relay it back to that client and what it means for that client. The free bank system is what's allowing also this market to function the way it's been functioning. And the free bank really is mom and dad. Most people under the age of 40 today, they're entering the market by borrowing the equity from their parents' homes and leveraging that. And that's a strategy that a lot of you here, that are fairly young, and your friends, just started their careers, don't have a lot of savings, want to get into the market. The reality is they'll never be able to save their way in a market that's growing 10 to 15% a year. It's just not possible. The math doesn't work. The average price of a home is $1 million plus. 10% growth a year is $100,000. Most people cannot save a fraction of that per year. So the only way to really get into the market is not saving your way to get into the market. Is you have to leverage, your parents, the equity that they have in their homes, leverage partnerships, leverage friends that have their careers already established, and find a way to joint venture, get together, collaborate, and leverage the resources that other people in this market already have established, from being able to enter into the market 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago. I just put a client in a home in Newmarket, and the homeowner had been there from 1983. She bought the home for $60,000. She just sold it for $900,000 to my client. And that's just an example of somebody who, sitting on a ton of wealth, but really not really knowing what to do with it, how to leverage it. If she had met me back in 1984, which I was just born, I probably could have showed her a couple of things in terms of how to expedite and how to leverage and double down and scale, her products and her portfolio. And that's really one of the differentiating things that we do here, is really tap into that equity, teaching clients how to tap into that equity. We will be having more lenders join our, these monthly meetings that will teach you how to structure, teach you how to get creative, teach you how to leverage other forms of institutional lending, besides just your primary A lenders. There's private money out there, there's B lenders, there's credit unions. There's many, many ways for you to be able to tap into that equity. Do not let that equity go to waste. That's conversations I continuously have with my friends and family. And these are conversations that you need to be having with your friends and family, because when they're listening to all this news and all this noise about the real estate market, you need to be able to convey to them what's in it for them. Now, to our topic of discussion, what is an assignment sale? So an assignment sale is a transaction where the original buyer of a property, also known as an assigner, allows another buyer, the assignee, to take over the buyer's rights and obligations of the agreement before the original buyer closes on the property, um, and they take possession of the property. The assignee is the one ultimately who completes the deal with the seller. That is OREA's definition. It's very, very wordy, a lot of big words. So let's simplify it. Now, the best way that I can simplify it is just from my personal experience. The first property that I ever purchased was an assignment sale at King West. The original purchaser, his name was Sean. He had bought 8 properties. Isaac was my realtor at the time. So Sean had bought 8 properties. He purchased them for 180,000. He had no intention of closing on all 8 properties, and he simply was using assignments as a business model to flip his contracts before closing. So 6 months before closing, Sean reached out to Isaac, and Isaac had gotten myself and a couple of my friends to be able to purchase these assignments. And the benefit for us was we didn't want to wait 4 years for closing. We wanted to be able to close and get a mortgage on something right away, but we also wanted something brand new, something customizable, and something that still had legs to grow as well. So Sean sold, one to me and a whole bunch to some other friends. Um, so one to me, so a whole bunch to another friends. I believe I purchased it for about $220,000. The market at the time was 240,000. So I was happy because I was coming into something and I was making money day one because I had a $20,000 lift from day one, and I was able to close on a property, rent it out, um, and then be able to be a homeowner without going into the market to compete, without going into something in the resale market that, because a lot of times with resale, you never really know. You can have an inspection done, you can have due diligence done, but you never really know what's behind it in terms of issues. And those things can pop up, 2, 3 years, 4 years down the road. So at least with an assignment sale, you still get the same benefits, warranty as you would get with buying pre-construction, but you don't have to wait the lengthy periods. Now, a lot of things that I've experienced with, assignments is sometimes even realtors are not even sure if assignments are legal, because, to them it's kind of a foreign concept. You buy a contract, you have an obligation to close on it. You don't close on it, you flip the contract, make a profit, and then the new buyer, they're essentially responsible for closing the property, occupancy fees, HST if they're subject to it, land transfer, um, and also carrying the mortgage and, paying out the developer for whatever the balance is owed to the developer. So, it's almost kind of a weird model. So a lot of people have questions about, is this even legal? In Ontario, and actually assignment sense in general are legal. Any contract by law is assignable. Now, where the issue wasn't with assignment sales years ago was in areas like BC. What would happen is somebody like, let's say, Folu goes and he buys a pre-construction at Alba Condos in Square One. The next year, he decides, you know what? I bought this for $400,000. I want to sell this for 420,000. I'm going to assign it to Michael Yacht. So he assigns it to me for 420,000. He makes a $20,000 profit. 6 months later, I decide, you know what? I don't want to close on this. I would rather assign this contract to Ryan Dehaney before closing. So I assign it to Ryan Dehaney for 450,000. I make 30,000 on it, and then Ryan decides the next year he doesn't want to close on this either, and to he's going to assign it to Natasha for $500,000, and he's going to make $50,000 on it. Natasha decides, okay, you know what? I like this property. I'm going to close on it. I'm going to get on mortgage. I'm going to get a mortgage on it. And on closing, she's going to get something called a statement of adjustments. And on that statement of adjustments, it's going to show how many times that contract has exchanged hands. And all these individuals have essentially profited from essentially doing nothing really. And Natasha is going to be, she could be pissed off because, this product started at 400,000 from the developer, and all these people have exchanged hands, never registering title, never legally owning the properties, and they've essentially made a ton of money in between without any type of risk or liability to them. So in so to reassign a contract is now illegal. So assignments are only allowed to be done once, and also they are subject to capital gains because obviously you're making a profit on it, and obviously capital gains is dependent on your income, dependent on your intention. So these are questions that you would want to have a discussion with an accountant about, not a discussion with your realtor, not a discussion with your realtor about. Ultimately, when we go into buy pre-construction, you know, we treat it as a get out of jail card, not as a business model. We treat it as, in the event, you lose your job, in the event you have to relocate, in the event, something drastic happens, and something drastic happens in your life, and you don't want to close on it, or you can't close on it. The assignments are there and they're available for you as a get out of jail card. And that is probably the most important discussion you should be having with your clients, if you're representing sellers that are thinking, hey, you know what, let me go in and let me buy 20 units, 4 assignments, which I've seen before. Seen clients go into a building, buy 20 units, they flip 10 contracts, they make $1 million in a very, very short period of time, and then they close on another 10, and they close on another 10 units. It's important for those buyers to understand that if, in the event you assign a contract to another party and that party is not able to close on the assignment, you as the original purchaser are still liable to the builder, not the assignee. So the original purchaser is still liable to the builder for the funds or the balance owing. So it's very risky, and it's very dangerous to treat it as a business model, because you could end up losing all your deposits. You can end up being still sued by the builder, and then you would have to sue the assignee to get the funds for the breach of contract. So it can become very, very messy, and very important to not treat assignments as a business model, but treat it more so as a get out of jail card. Now, who do assignments benefit? Essentially, it benefits everybody. You have motivated sellers who, for whatever reason, they need to get out of the contracts. They're not able to close. They don't want to close. So they need to get out of those contracts. So they're, in my opinion, every seller of an assignment is a motivated seller, because it doesn't make sense why you would assign a contract, because there's typically, you leave a lot of money on the table when you assign contracts, because usually the buyers of assignments are investors. Even end users find assignments very complicated. Lenders, banks find assignments very complicated. Some banks will not fund assignment sales. So, it's very, very important to know that, as sexy as it could be, as lucrative as it could be, there are still complexities in between that you still need to be aware of when you're talking and educating clients. Capitalized buyers. Why I say capitalized buyers, because usually sellers want their profits and they want their deposits up front when you're dealing in assignment sales. So, for example, let's use Folu. If Folu bought a product for $600,000 and he assigns it to me for $700,000, typically the builder had required Folu to put $120,000, which is 20% of the purchase cost. Now, Folu is selling it to me for $100,000 profit. Folu, in terms of how he would want to structure his assignment deal, will be asking me for his original deposit of 120,000 plus the $100,000 profit that he is making on the purchase. So all in all, Folu will be asking me for $220,000, which is a lot of capital. Um, but if I'm bringing $220,000 up front, I'm going to be asking Folu for a generous discount on the purchase price or the market value. So I might say to Folu, hey, you know what? The market is 700,000. You know what? I only want this if you're going to give it to me for 650,000. So you're only going to make 50,000 on this, because you're not going to find a lot of buyers that have that kind of capital on hand, to be able to finance your profit and to be able to finance your deposits as well. So capitalized buyers are ideally the type of individuals that you want to um, put in assignment sales, simply because of all the risks that I mentioned with lenders, with builders. Because if somebody's bringing 220,000 upfront, there's a good chance that they're going to close on that property. They're not going to walk away from a deposit of from funds that they've invested that high. So they're going to do whatever it takes to close on it. So that way the risk doesn't go back to Folu. And even if the risk does go back to Folu, and I'm not able to close on the property, Folu's happy because he just got $220,000 from me. He knows the property is up X amount, and he can use my funds to close on the property. And I'll be out of luck because I've invested so much capital, and I'm not obligated to and I'm not, and if I don't close, then I'm risking and I'm losing all that money. It also benefits the builders, but it benefits the builders in a sense that people are talking about the product. People are pushing the prices of the product, because when Folu bought it from the builder, he bought it for 600,000. Now Folu's assigning it for 700,000. So now the builder, because typically builders hold about 5 to 10% inventory till maybe 6 months to closing, and they're gonna sell those last bit of inventory, which is builder inventory. They're gonna sell it for a lot more than what they initially sold it for 3, 4, 5 years ago. So when they see assignments happening in the marketplace, it triggers to them, hey, you know what? We can sell this to the public at a much, much higher price. And this is the price that we can sell it for because we're seeing assignment sales happening. And it's going to allow them to really capture even more profits than what they would have originally captured if they had sold those last pieces of inventory earlier. I'm going to take a quick pause there, see if anybody has any questions, because I am going pretty fast. So I'll take a moment there if anyone has any questions. I'm not able to see the messages, but maybe Natasha, if you can just read the messages, any questions that anybody may have, and then that way I can address it before I move on.
Nothing yet.
Nothing yet? Okay. So shoot your questions over if you do have any questions. And also if I might address questions that you may potentially have as we go along. So um, we can also take questions again at the end. So how much do assignments cost and who pays for it? Essentially, you can structure who pays for it between the sellers and the buyers, or between the assignor and the assignee. When we go in and we buy pre-construction, we typically put an assignment clause in there. Usually, platinum stages and platinum agents, they're able to get these costs for free or a very small amount, but there's always legal costs associated with it, even if it's free. So even if you see $0 for assignment, there's usually a few $100, $500, $700 to $1,000 for the lawyers to prepare those documents. So there is always a cost to it, an administrative cost. Usually, if somebody's bringing a lot of capital to the table, the seller will typically absorb the costs associated with assigning the product, but it's not a rule of thumb. I've seen it structured different ways. It really depends on a lot of different things. Another thing to note about assignment sales, usually when you assign a contract to someone, you lose any incentives and you lose any benefits. So if Folo goes and buys a pre-construction from the builder and he assigns it to me, and let's say the builder gave Folo $20,000 of free upgrades and credits, when it comes to me, the builder will not honor those incentives that Folo received in the beginning. So that's very, very important to note as well, that those incentives could be waived and they'll be detailed in your contracts so that way what you're getting and what you're not getting, what's transferable, what's not transferable. So that way you don't have somebody suing you on closing or trying to make adjustments on closing because you were promised that free island, the hardwood floors, what do you call it, 2-inch quartz, and you're getting a 1/2 inch. So make sure that is communicated and that is understood before you go in and you are signing off on those assignment contracts. When to execute. This is probably the most annoying thing when it comes to assignment sales. Dealing with investors is, I have clients that will buy condos in January 2021, and by April 2021 they're asking me, what can I assign it for, or what's it worth now if I were to assign it. Assignments can't be executed for the most part until the project is at least 90% sold out, because the builder does not want you to compete with them in terms of sales prices. They want control. They want to control the inventory. They want to control the pace of how the product is received by the public, and they don't want to see advertisements on MLS, Kijiji, for a fraction of what they'll be selling it for. So assignment sales are only executable typically once it's 90% sold. More recently, I'm seeing that assignments are only executable once they've started construction on the roof, so which doesn't give you much time to assign. And they want it more later and later in the stages before closing. Builders like Daniels, you're not even allowed to assign until occupancy. So that's very important to understand, that they won't even let you assign until people have started moving in, which could be beneficial to you, because if you want to target end users who typically will pay more than investors, end users want to see a product that's finished. They want to be able to walk through, even if there's, because usually even during occupancy, there's still work getting done at the units. Elevators, maybe 1 out of 3 elevators work. There's no security, there's no management, there's no street signs, in terms of, people are still getting lost. Canada Post doesn't know where to find you in your mail. So there's still inconveniences during that occupancy stage. But at least if they can see the shell of that product, end users can sort of envision what that product will look like, envision what, the space and their furniture and their family, what all that looks like. So sometimes it is better for you that these are executable once construction has started on the roof, because it allows you to pull a greater pool of buyers than what you would have previously been able to do. And then obviously the builder needs to consent to it and sign off on it before that deal between you and the party that you're assigning to is firm. So those are typically the 3 stages that you have to exist before the builder would execute on an assignment sale. Who can request one? Typically, if you're, a lot of developers and a lot of sales companies will just give free assignments and assignment clauses. They'll just simply add it to the contracts of, platinum agents and VIP agents, but they don't always necessarily do that. So you have to request it, or have a lawyer request it, or during the 10-day cool off period, if the buyer just goes in there on their own, the buyer can request it directly from the sales rep, but that's more challenging, and it's easier to do it in a 10-day cool off period for condos. Singles, when you're buying freehold, there is no 10-day cool off in pre-construction, usually when you're buying freehold. Sometimes developers will give you a grace period, but they don't really have to. So there is no 10-day cool off period when you're buying pre-construction freehold. When you're buying pre-construction condos, there's a 10-day cool off period. So it allows you to make changes, get a lawyer review, put in the clauses that you want, such as assignments. So that's a very important thing to note. But the easiest way that I find to get what I want from builders that typically don't put assignment clauses, don't put right to lease during occupancy, don't put caps on development charges, is to have a lawyer request all those things, because it's more official, it's more formal, and you'll typically get more from it if an agent or a platinum agent is not able to get that for you. Uh, is it subject to capital gains? Again, it depends on what your intention is. What was your intention when you bought that pre-construction? Was it to move in? You would have to argue that with CRA, get your accountant to discuss that. And also CRA could come back to you and say it's subject to income tax 100%. Capital gains, we know 50% of the gains is subject to being taxed, but also it could be income gains as well, which means 100% of your gains are subject. Again, all those depend on what your intention is. From a builder perspective, if I go in with a client, and I tell the agent and I tell the sales rep at the sales office that I want a right to lease during occupancy. So we know that the occupancy period for pre-construction could last anywhere from 3 months to 2 years, depending on the project and depending on how long it takes for that builder to get their, to get registration for that project. That could be a very long time, which means you're paying phantom rent. You're paying you're paying occupancy rent to the builder, and none of that rent is going towards a mortgage. So that could be a very long period of paying rent to the builder during occupancy without those payments going towards a mortgage. So a typical thing we will do is request a right to lease during that occupancy period, because that property is not registered to you. It's still registered to the builder. You need permission to do so. However, when you ask for permission to lease during right to occupancy, it signals to the developer your intention is not to move in there. So right away, you're not only subject to capital gains, but you're also subject to HST. Now, HST, you can get back a portion of it on closing, but you do have to put out that HST up front with your purchase price, and then get it back after registration 3 to 6 months later. So be careful when you request a right to lease during occupancy, and make sure you're communicating with your clients what that means, because it will expose them not only to capital gains, but it will also expose them to HST as well. Moving on, where to find assignment sales. There's many networks that you can find assignment sales in. The most popular ones that I find them or post them in are, number one, Broker Bay, because Broker Bay has an assignment section where you can post and where you can find assignments all across the GTA, and pretty much all across Ontario. Um, Another place is Facebook. I can see Jason's picture here on Facebook as one of the 6,000 members in this assignment group. And here you can go, you can share the information that you want, all the information, all the details about the purchase price, the floor plan, the deposit structure, the commissions that you'd be paying for cooperating. And you can, shop it around on the Facebook group. I find a Facebook group is not the most organized tool, because if you post something from 6 months ago, it gets bumped down all the way down, and then you have to keep reposting it. There's other networks, Kijiji. I found assignments on Kijiji in the past, and MLS, if the builder has given permission to post it on MLS. Typically, the builders do not until it's 90% sold. So you will rarely find assignment sales on MLS unless they've satisfied some of those conditions that I mentioned earlier. How to structure it, as I mentioned, um, excuse me, from a seller perspective, the seller wants their deposits and profits up front, because they don't want the risk and they don't want the exposure of that buyer not closing on it. So to protect themselves, they always want deposits and profits up front. However, you limit your pool, and also investors typically want a discount as well. So it might not be the most ideal. I sold about 14 assignments last year in January, and 90% of those sales were to end users. And most of them, I only structured it for them to bring their deposit, sorry, for them to bring the initial deposits up front, or I structured it for them sometimes to just bring only 5% down, and took on the risk of them potentially not closing. But I also made sure there was other things that I did. I made sure that they had a mortgage pre-approval in place before assigning it to them. And I did that by talking to their agents, making sure the agents understood the risk of them not having their mortgage pre-approval in place, because they could lose this and it exposes me in this way. So I structured most of those deals with only 5% down, and I waited to get my profits, or the seller's profits, and the rest of the deposits on final closing. So even myself, when I bought my original pre-construction 10 years ago assignment sale, I only had to bring $10,000 down, and the original purchaser was at risk if I didn't close. And I was about a week late on closing. And I know that original purchaser was sweating buckets, because he would have been exposed and he would have been the one on the hook, which I didn't find out until later on, that that's how assignments were structured. But so you can structure it with first-time home buyers. You just need to know that with first-time home buyers, they typically need to see it. You definitely want to make sure they have a pre-approval in place, and you will get most of your deposits and most of your profit up front, sorry, on closing, because they just don't have enough capital to be able to finance it, um, and to make it, and to give you all that capital up front. Different examples of assignment sales. So I'll just throw out some ones that I have in my pipeline. I have about maybe 15 assignment sales in my pipeline at the moment, which obviously I cannot assign because of the conditions that aren't ready to be fulfilled, which are 90% sold, construction starting on the roof, and getting builder consent. But I have a bunch of pre-constructions into my pipeline. I know Dreammaker typically has a bunch of assignment sales in our pipelines that we always have, typically because we service a lot of investors. This is a purchase in Streetsville, Mississauga, 3-bedroom, 2-washroom town. 860,000 was the original purchase. 999,000 is the current market value. Total deposits made are 90,000. Profits are about 140,000. If the seller is able to capture all their gains upfront without discounting anything. So in an example like this, the ideal structure would be to find somebody who has $90,000 plus 140,000, which is a total of 230,000, to be able to assign this product to them. And then you'll pay your commissions from there. Also, what I also like to do with a structure like this for assignments is I always like to keep something in the real estate trust of the selling company. So for example, for Dreammaker Realty, I like to keep, so let's say the original, let's say the buyers only have $50,000. I like to keep at least 5% of the purchase price in Dreammakers Realty Trust. And then another 5%, assuming they're able to bring more capital, could be kept in the trust of a lawyer. So that way we can release some funds to the seller upon execution before closing. Because typically sellers want to get some money right now. So in the event, let's say the perfect scenario where somebody's able to bring $230,000, I would probably keep $100,000 in Dreammaker Realty's trust, and then $100,000 with the lawyer of the seller, and then have that money released to the seller upon upon execution before final closing. I know that's a little wordy, simply because from execution to final closing could be a year away, could be 6 months away. So in order to make sure the seller gets some funds right away, it will be ideal to structure it so you keep some money in Dreammaker Realty's trust and you keep the further balance in a lawyer's trust so they can release some of those funds to the seller. I know that's really wordy, and I know probably it's hard to conceptualize uh, everything that I'm saying, and it's also easier to see it in a contract. So I'll make sure that I give Natasha an assignment that's well drafted and documented, so that way you guys can see examples of what that looks like in terms of the structure. Here's another one: backyard condos. This is the Queens view. I believe, Dreammaker, we went and we bought a combination, a total of about 25 of these, an average of a 1+den. I believe we purchased for about 430,000. Today, market value 620,000. I forgot to put the deposits made here. I believe the deposits made here were 43,000. So 43,000 plus 190,000 is the ideal structure. However, we can structure it for first-time home buyers, so that they can only bring 5% down, and it will give an opportunity to buy something brand new, still not built, but it will be closing a lot earlier than something that's structured to close a lot further along. And then this is another one. This is downtown. Again, same idea. Purchase price was $1 million and change. New market value is about 1.2. Original deposit is about 200,000. Profits today are about 180,000. So you're looking at about $400,000 needed to be able to execute on a contract like this. Again, this is why assignment sales are typically structured with investors, and because they have a lot of capital, and also typically these investors will want a discount on the purchase price, and most likely they will not be paying market value. They'll probably come under market value because they're required to bring so much capital up front. And other examples of assignments, you can essentially do and assign in all types of product categories: cottages, freehold. But just know that, again, that 10-day cool-off period when you're buying pre-construction does not apply to freehold. It typically only applies to condos. So to summarize, benefits, for assignments, and why you would want to have an assignment, and why it is appealing to people as a business model. Number one, there's no mortgage that you are responsible for, because you're assigning your contracts over to the new buyer, the assignee. They're essentially responsible for closing. You're not responsible as an investor for finding tenants, managing tenants, dealing with vacancies, dealing with damages, dealing with all the complaints that you typically go with property management and managing properties. You put in a deposit down, waiting a few years, assigning your rights, taking your profits, and moving along. You're not responsible for the closing costs. You don't have to bring any further deposits down, because your lender might say, hey, you've put 20% down with the developer, but you might still need another 5 to 10% to close, in addition to all the costs associated with closing what closing typical closing costs like land transfer, or if you're subject to HST based on your intention. But if you're assigning it, you're not worried about HST. But you could be exposed to capital gains, so or even income gains. So make sure you're aware of that. And incentives and upgrades are not transferable as well to the new buyer. And bottom line, just pay your taxes on it. Stop trying to find a way to cheat the government, because they will find you, and they will audit you 7 years later. And I'm seeing it happen, because before, builders never used to really disclose, but today, developers, when you submit the worksheet, they typically ask you, what is, are you an end user or are you an investor? Now, I always tell everybody, check off the end user box in the worksheets, because those worksheets will be used when, if CRA does audit that developer. They will look at those worksheets and they'll say, hey, you checked out Folu was an investor, but Folu made 100,000 and never paid taxes. So they will use that against you, because the developer is responsible to make sure that you pay the HST. But in the event you don't, that could still come back and that could hurt you. And of course, there's a ton of money, there's a ton of profits to be made with assignments, and that's why it's an appealing business model. But do know that the hook is still on you in the event that that person is not able to close. So that's what I would like to share about assignments. Hopefully, you guys have gotten a lot more information and you're more versed. Most agents do not understand how assignments generally work. So just with this alone, you're further ahead to be able to, leverage your skill sets, go in there, shop around for your buyers, put them into, I know Benson did a couple of assignment sales where he represented buyers by having a conversation like this with me, where I said, you know what, stop putting clients into products where they're overbidding and they're overpaying. Go and find these motivated sellers, structure a deal with them, and put your clients into something brand new where they're winning and they're closing very, very quickly, and and they're able to get a discount on it without competing with anybody as well. So I know there's a couple of questions here. What other ways can you structure the deposits for an assignment? I believe I answered that. So you can do it with a first time with first time home buyers, where they're bringing only 5% down. You can do it where they're bringing only the deposits made, or you can do it with deposits plus profits being realized. So those are typically the three ways you can do it. Who at Dream is a platinum agent. Platinum agent is not a universal thing. Every major sales company has their own requirements and how they vet platinum agents. So nobody can say I'm an indefinite platinum agent, because Intuition has their own requirements, Daniels has their own requirements, Tridel has their own requirements, Milborn has their own requirements, Spectrum has their own requirements, Baker Realty has their own requirements. And these are your major sales companies that represent developers. Sometimes some developers do it in-house. TFN is a great example. TFN is a brokerage. They're the only platinum agents are TFN agents. So you'll have to broker a deal with a TFN agent. And TFN typically exclusively represents Empire, the developer, and Empire will only do a lot of their platinum releases through the TFN agents first, then they'll release it to all groups of agents after. So we have, between, I'll say, myself and Isaac, and I know there's a couple of other agents that do have preferential, have relationships with other realtors, sorry, with other sales companies that are able to get access. So between myself and Isaac, and I know, there's other agents within Dreammaker that are close or very close. Every sales company has their requirements. Daniels, I believe you have to do about 10 sales a year to get into their program, which is always impossible for me because Daniels never has a deposit structure that makes sense for my clients. Daniels usually releases their projects when they're about 6 months to closing. So for most of my clients who are investors, they want a longer timeline. So Daniels for me is always impossible, and I always have to team up with other platinum agents to be able to represent or to get clients into Daniels projects, such as Keelsdale. Keelsdale, which is at Keel and Eglinton, that just launched, sold out within a week. And again, the only way I was able to get access to that, if I wanted, was to reach out to a sales manager at Daniels, and if they were paying 3%, I would pay that agent about 0.5 to 1% to be able to get that access. And that's another thing. Don't be afraid to do splits with other agents in other that have the access that you need. We pay for access all the time. Queensview condos, which is backyard condos, we had to pay for access and deposit structures, and we paid 1 point to be able to get the access and the allocations. Typically, if you're working with me in somewhere where you do require some kind of access, because it's being done in-house through Dreammaker, I typically charge 0.5 for that access, because there's work and requirements that are required from me after the deal is done, administratively from the brokerages. I mean, I'm still dealing with administrative stuff from 2019 that I still have to action, and I still have to take time to make sure it's done. And whenever you team up with an agent that has access, you do typically have to pay at least 1%. If we're doing it in-house, that cost is typically 0.5%. What can I do to stay on top of the latest projects? I'm not sure what projects you're referring to, Ryan, with that question, but I'm guessing you're saying pre-construction projects. The best, I mean, Terranet has a system. Terranet is in MLS, and it shows you pretty much, I wouldn't say every pre-construction, but a lot of pre-constructions can be found on Terranet. What I find is Terranet is not the most organized and is very complicated to kind of understand. And companies like BuzzBuzz Home, they do a much better job of taking that data from Terranet and making it visible and easy to understand with contact information. So BuzzBuzz is a great tool for that. And just registering for as many newsletters as possible. The downside with that is you're going to get every morning at least 20 pre-construction launches, and you have to quickly vet through them to see which one makes sense, which ones don't make sense. And even Broker Bay does a very good job of daily giving you those exclusive emails. And I quickly go through all of those every day when I receive it from Broker Bay to see what are assignments, where they're available, what region, log into Broker Bay and take a look at them and to vet them. So it does require legwork. You do have to work to be able to find these deals, to be able to shop around. Join those exclusive networks on Facebook. Those networks are only for agents. And you do have to go through those on a daily basis to be able to kind of see what's available. So there's a lot of legwork that is involved in finding these deals and shopping around for these deals. And, some agents only post them on Kijiji for whatever reason. They're a little bit more old school and they don't really know the resources and the tools available. So they'll only post it on Kijiji to be able to, because that's the only tool that they understand. So, Kijiji, sometimes you can find them. Facebook Marketplace, I've seen assignment sales posted there. So they're all over the place, and it's a little bit of a wild, wild west. It's not the most organized structure, but you just need to put your head down, go to work, shop it around, and find them. And it does require putting in at least 30 minutes to an hour per day to find these deals and to find these what do you call it? These types of assignment structures, and also networking and finding out what agencies represent assignment sales. Sometimes you will find, I forgot what their name is, but it's two brokerages usually when I need to find assignment sales that I'll reach out to. One of them is Rec Canada. So REC, Simeon is the principal there at REC. They do a lot of pre-construction like us, so they always have a lot of pre-construction that they're looking to offload, and deals that they're looking to structure and be able to work out. So it's about getting out there, networking with agents, going out to see what's available in the marketplace. Who are these brokerages like Dreammaker Realty that do a lot of pre-construction sales, finding out who these individuals are, adding them on Facebook, building relationships, doing, going to events, networking and just networking and just networking. And, and that the key word in that is the working. There's work that it involves, that it entails for you to be able to find that and to be able to stay on top of all these projects as well. So that's the assignment summary. The great opportunities within it to be able to make a lot of money, to get your clients in, take advantage of it. We will post the structures in place. So we will post an APS in place so that you guys will be able to see it. And if there's no further questions, I'll just kind of finish off with our closing remarks, and then we can continue from there. Also, these calls are recorded, so you can come back, listen to it again, refer to the shared drive to be able to get more information, learn more about it, and then just empower yourselves, give yourselves more tools in your arsenal to be, separate yourself from the masses, in this business and in this space, and really treat this as a profession. Now, with all that being said, I know there's some admin stuff that need to be done, some in-house stuff from the brokerage perspective. Number one is headshots. I know Natasha has sent out emails for you to send professional photos of yourself, to send headshots. So please get that done right away, or else we'll just put an avatar of your photo in the
Everyone
meet.
in the chat right now, I have a headshot for.
Oh, you do? Okay,
Yeah,
perfect. Okay.
all the other people.
To all the other people.
Yeah.
Not August, but potentially September. Our our meeting, our like this will we will try, depending on what the provincial rules are. We will have it at either Dream Suites, the
Mhm.
event space slash hotel, or we will have it in at the office, so that way we can kind of start to get people back. I know most people, whether you're vaccinated or not, I really don't care. It's your kind of personal thing. Um, but we will start to kind of get people together the based on what the province allows us to do indoors with crowds and so forth. So we will be looking to get people together to be able to do these meetings more face to face, because it's going to be obviously tremendous value associated with it. Next month we will have. I'm going to have a friend of mine who's a lawyer to come and share from a legal perspective, what our contracts, what OREA contracts, best practices to kind of be able to protect yourself. And also, I don't know if you guys know, but OREA has a team of lawyers that you pay for, that we pay for in our dues and our memberships. So if you have questions related to clauses, you can call OREA and you'll get a professional to answer these questions, because we pay a lot of money in real estate fees, and part of that gives you counsel for when you guys have stuff that is a little bit weird that you come across, and OREA has a team of lawyers there to be able to service us as members. So important to know. But in addition to that, we will have look to have a lawyer here. I haven't confirmed exactly who it is. I just need to confirm schedule, make sure that they can make it for our time schedule as well. So look out for those things. Hopefully, we can get some more information from Andy, and for the information that they've shared with Dream Insurance, so we can see what that collaboration looks like. If there's going to be referral programs, affiliate programs that will be designed and created. So there's a lot of things still in the works. And will there be a grand opening for the hotel? That's a question for Isaac, and maybe he'll bring that up when when we meet in person. Also, that event space is going to be great for you two guys to be able to, you know, maybe do a client appreciation event,
Mm.
doing a client launch event. It's one thing to show that, hey, you know what, I'm part of a realty that also has a development arm, but to be able to show, hey, part of a realty with a development arm, with a management arm, with an insurance arm, and with a event slash hotel space, that gives you power in terms of being able to bring clients, solidify, bring clients, and also create a product differentiation as well with clients. So I'm working on a 2-pager that will kind of answer the why dream maker question. So that way, if you guys go into listing presentations and so forth, kind of, what differentiates dream maker from the marketplace and everything else that is available there. So we are working on those things. I will be in the office tomorrow for a very, very short period of time. If anybody has questions, I know typically Friday, everybody likes to show up to pick up checks. We are working on a tool for, I believe it's called ETFs or EFTs. I think it's ETFs. I don't want to mix the two. To be able to do direct deposits for agents. We do have a lot of checks, and I feel people still like checks. Like personally, I like checks. I like taking a look at it, looking at it, putting it in a bank account. But I get it. It's COVID. We're looking for efficiency. So we are working with Scotia Connect, to be able to have that set up for not only ourselves as agents, but also for our clients, for the balances that are owed to them. So that way we don't have to mail it out or have them come pick it up, that kind of stuff. I think I covered most of the admin stuff that I'm aware of. Anything, Natasha, that you wanna add on?
You like took my job.
Oh, I did.
Yeah, just I
I
mean,
had my coffee this morning. I'm on one.
I'll send out a reminder to the people that do owe me agent photos. If they're, again, congrats to Ryan for his first listing and for killing his first listing. And I think you sold it in, I think like it was just a week or under a week at 190 over. So that's really cool. But if any of you, there's a couple new people in the chat who are working on listings or just need
Mhm.
help, just hit me up and we can do a Zoom training to show you how to broker load the listing and put it up on Broker Bay and all that stuff. And even like marketing materials, if you guys need help with creating feature sheets or social media stuff, I can help you with that stuff too.
Awesome. Ryan, congratulations. Ryan, maybe you want to take a minute to kind of share your experience, what you learned, if it was easy, and and what that was like, if you were scared, if you were nervous. Maybe if you want to just take a minute to share. I'm interested to hear, because last month was, we discussed how to prepare for it, and here we are 30 days later, and you've looks like you got the desired results that you wanted.
Yeah, it was. Thank you very much. It was a learning curve, right? This is my first listed property, and I kind of knew going in it was a desirable area and a desirable layout, but I originally had a offer date so we listed it on Tuesday, June 22nd, and I put a offer date for the following Tuesday, June 29th. And in the beginning, it didn't seem, there were a lot of showings, but it wasn't pandemonium, right? So I was a little put off that there weren't as many showings as I thought as there were going to be. But then by about the weekend, somebody came in with a pretty strong offer.
So
preemptive? Yeah, preemptive. Yeah, preemptive
Okay.
offer. So somebody came in with a strong offer, preemptive, and then I was kind of unsure what to do. So I talked to somebody that I knew who's been in the game for a while, and they said move up the offer date. So I moved it up from Tuesday to I think it was the Saturday. And what then happened is the new floor was set. So the offer came in at $1 million, and so the floor had been set with a concrete offer at $1 million. and everyone else had to compete with that. And
Now,
that,
now you didn't disclose that it was $1 million though.
oh, definitely not. No.
Okay.
So basically, everyone else, I just kept saying the words. It's a strong offer that we really have to consider.
Gotcha. Good job.
That sort of the way I conveyed it kind of got everyone, going, and sort of this FOMO set in. And there was a family who had an autistic son who needed that area, and they came in pretty strong. And
so they came over $1 million.
Definitely, they came in. So they originally came in with 1,070,000.
Okay.
And then basically there were a couple other offers. So there were 3 offers that were all close.
Yep.
I gave everyone, a second chance. There were 3 offers all close together. If you can improve, this is your chance.
Yep.
And they came in with 1,090,000.
That's good. Congrats. Congrats. Yeah. Now, how did you manage the offers as they came in? Did you print them out?
Yeah, I did.
You printed them out, so you had them displayed. You met with your sellers.
Yep.
I'm presuming, or you did it over Zoom. You displayed the offers.
No, I went to their house.
You went to their house. You displayed all offers.
Yep.
And then you called all the parties, let them know there's a strong offer. Would you guys? And how many rounds of offers did you do?
Just 1 round of offer.
Just 1 round. Okay.
Yeah.
And you set the stage for just 1 round of offers will be done, so that way everybody knew this was going to be the final and the best.
Yeah. So, and even there was a little confusion with that. So I told them that, bring your final and best offer. So that I wanted the 1 round.
Yeah.
And after getting all the offers in and we accepted that 1 offer, there was one other person who was saying they had offered $1,020,000.
Okay.
As their second round. And so I told him, this, bring your final and best, and he brought 1,020,000. So after I told him that I accepted somebody else's offer, he says, oh, my client would have went to 1.1, right?
Hey, that's fine. You know what? As long as you disclosed final and best, and you conveyed that, because everybody plays that game.
Yeah,
now,
I realize that. Yeah.
Very, very. I mean, to do your first listing and to have an offer date and to manage multiple offers, that's quite the workload. And I'm glad that you were able to have a successful outcome with it. I would, in future, even another time, involve someone else in that process, simply because the emotions could run really, really wild. And also, for example, if you had a client that you brought your own offer, let's say you did showings for the property and you had your own personal client that also had offers for that property, it will be best for you to register your client first before, let's say the offer registration time was 5 p.m. What I would do is at 4 p.m. I'll send an email out through Broker Bay, just to disclose, my name is Mike Liad. I'm the listing agent. I also have a client that I'm representing. My offer will be presented first, and I will not be the one presenting my offer.
Right. Okay.
So, and I think what we can do maybe for next month, we'll discuss offer dates. Offer dates could be, it could be a hit or miss.
Yeah.
My last listen, I chose not to do an offer date because I found in the area there were too many offer dates. So I just assumed everybody who's losing is going to be pissed, and then they're going to be reluctant to go into offer dates. They're still effective, but you have to know when to use it. And as you said, you were probably expecting 10 offers from the sound of what you were sharing, and you got maybe none in the beginning, but you got one strong one that really set the tone for everything else to come.
Yeah.
So when to use offer dates, I would gauge it week to week as a strategy, because it might not be the most effective because A, there's more supply coming on the market. B, there's a lot of buyers that are just kind of like fed up of losing offer days. So they see a price and they say, this is not a real price. I'm not even going to bother showing it. or I'm not even gonna bother looking at it. So knowing when to use an offer date strategy is very important, and I think I will bring that up and I'll make that as part of the discussion for next month. Congratulations, though. I'm glad it worked out. Obviously, you have an 801 that you can have in the event that somebody does come out and say something else different. Because agents have that funny thing because they always want to say, well, what number should I bring? What number should I bring? It's like, dude, bring your final and best. You know, the risk is on you because
Yeah,
if you're going with no conditions and the bank doesn't finance that full amount, then you as the buyer, you're on the hook for the balance, right? So
yeah, yeah.
these are all things that I will make sure that we put into our discussion for next month. But other than that, congratulations. I'm glad it worked out. And
Thank
you know
you.
what? Good luck. Good luck on number two.
That's the goal now. This is finished. Move on to something else.
Okay,
You should
awesome.
farm that area. Like you should send out something to the houses around that area since you've sold that listing saying I sold this house. It went over this much and see if you could potentially get another seller out of it.
That's exactly what I'm working on now. Just create a flyer and send it out saying just sold. I can help you.
Yeah.
But is there anything else other than just farming the area? Is there anything else that comes to mind as for a way for me to leverage this current deal?
I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, farming the area is the most effective way um, to leverage the deal.
Mhm.
Because again, I mean, I'm sure because in the showings, you had a lot of nosy neighbors probably show up, right? Just kind of
Uh,
see.
to be honest, I don't think so. I don't
You
think
don't.
there were too many neighbors. So I was actually, the house
Oh
was
yes,
vacant.
yes. There's no open houses. There's no.
Yeah.
I forgot. I forgot we don't have
So
open
so
houses.
so the reason, yeah, so there wasn't, but it helped because the house was pretty much vacant at the time. There were a few
Yeah.
times where I was at the house and I had a showing. Somebody had called from realtor.ca.
Yep.
So I showed the house, but I left the door open after they left, and I was there for an hour or two after. And I would see the cars slowing down, and I would
Yep.
call to them and say, "Hey, do you want to see it?" And I would show it to them.
Okay,
So
that's great. That's
that
great.
kind of helped. I think those were the only neighbors who really got to
Mhm.
see it. But aside from the neighbors on the street,
Mhm.
not
And you know what? We're really losing out at this moment because with listings to be able to leverage because we don't have open houses. Because open
yeah,
houses is probably the most effective way to still because you're gonna get people just driving by open house 2 to 4 o'clock and they pop in, right?
right.
And you exchange cards, you get their contacts, ask them if they're represented or if they have representation, and then find out if they live in the area, those kind of things. And that's another way to you collect their information, you add them to your mailing list, and then you're communicating with them, you're sharing them information, you're sharing
Right,
them
right.
your listings, you're sharing them with your wins. So open houses is a form of farming that we're losing out on at this moment because of COVID. But hopefully at September the province will allow open houses to resume, and that's another effective way um, to be able to leverage and get yourself out. Part of what I did when I first started is I reach out to all the veteran agents to say, when do you have your open houses? Because nobody likes doing open houses. As agents, it's just what it is. Sitting
Yeah,
around for 2 hours on a Saturday, Sunday. However, it's a great tool to be able to leverage, get your name out, get some practice without messing it up. Because even if you messed up something, it's not your listing, so who cares, right? And so reaching out to veteran agents saying, hey, when's your open house? Can I do it for you? I know Fuller's done a couple of open houses for me. I did a couple of open houses for some veteran agents when I started, and it allowed me to build my list, get comfortable with the process, wake up in the morning, put down signs and so forth, pick up signs at the end of it. So yeah, so once that resumes in September, that'll be a great way to leverage, your next listing. But in the meantime, marketing, put the flyers out, get a social media activity going, so that way people are buzzing up about around you and around what you've done as well. So congrats on that once again.
that sounds good. Thank you, thank you.
Okay, so guys, thank you very much. I think we wrapped up. Enjoy your Thursday. Well, you don't know how much you can enjoy because there's a lot of rain out there, but try to make do of it, and we will talk to you guys and see you guys on the next call. Take care and talk to everyone soon.
Have a good one.
Okay.